How many times have you seen Dune 2? Just once?
Just once. I need to see it.
I watched it the second time with my family.
I envy that person who has seen Dune 2 75 times in theaters or whatever.
Because it's peak every time.
It should have been me! Not him! Me!
So I rewatched Dune Part 1 with my family. And it was funny because they all liked that movie the first time. The second time they were like, man, this is slow. And I also kind of felt it the second time watching Part 1. Part 1's a lot slower on rewatch. Part 2 does not have that problem.
Oh my god.
I think the main thing that makes Dune Part 1 feel slow on rewatch is it ends at a weird spot.
Well, because it ends halfway through the book.
Yeah, but it's like...
And it ends at a part in the book where it's really not a conclusion.
Yeah.
So this is ... and the story continues.
Right. So the consequence of that is that Dune Part 1's most compelling section is like the middle of the movie. When the house gets bombed, the scene where him and his mom are in the tent and he has all the visions and she's like trying to console him and he's like, silence! That's the best scene.
Yeah.
And then there's another hour after that feels mostly like setup for what's going to happen in the second movie.
And it kind of is.
And it is, pretty much. Like, there was a lot rewatching the first one. Rewatching the first one, I did not remember. There's a scene in the first one where Paul Atreides literally, he outlines the whole potential plan of marrying the Emperor's daughter. He has that idea all the way back in Part 1, and then just doesn't bring it up again until, like, after drinking the water of life. So there's a lot of stuff like that in Part 1 that is more interesting when you've seen Part 2.
Yeah, the setup and then the payoff.
Yeah, but Part 2 is so... Well,
Where do I even begin? Like,
Part 2 was even better on rewatch.
It's so
because
good.
The first... Okay, when we were watching Part 2, my only, like, low point that I would have said was I think it starts a little slow. But then rewatching it, I'm like, no, it doesn't even start that slow. Like, Part 1 starts a lot slower. I
can't even review it. It's just so fucking...
It's so I have some review thoughts. So essentially, I love this is a structural element that I think makes Part 2 feel really well paced. You spend the first hour, I don't know the exact times, but you spend the first act, roughly, with Paul in the desert learning to be the freeman. Then, I love how they did this. It cuts to Austin Butler, Fade Routha, Chad Routha.
Rotha Flow.
Rotha Flow. And
this spice ain't nothing to me, man.
And for like 30, 45 minutes, it's his movie.
And then they intersect and you're like... It was supposed to be their story all along.
Well, that's what...
And then Lady Jessica said, what if I had a boy?
Both times watching the movie, I find myself during the Fade Routha section, like, hyped up for Fade Routha, even though I know he's this, like, genocidal maniac.
Also, his introduction is him literally, like, killing a woman
just to test the sharpness of his blade,
and then implying to like go have the guy go kill the guy who made it because it wasn't sharp enough.
Yeah, like he's a monster. But Austin Butler plays him so damn well that
I would like to apologize to Austin Butler for my comments to him during the Elvis era.
Truly.
Turns out he actually can act. When Baz Luhrmann isn't shouting in his ear, be more Southern!
Well, he truly, like, I feel like he took the swagger from Elvis and injected it into this, like, monstrous character. Just enough that you can, like...
You believe him. You believe him when he's, like...
That structural element I'm talking about, where you essentially spend 45 minutes, roughly, watching the rise of Maud Deep. You then watch the parallel rise of Fade Routha. They really like structuring it that way instead of intersecting the two. Really, emphasizes the parallels. They're both like these risen messiah figures in their own societies, and the Bene Gesserit are like pushing them both into the forefront. They push them both into that spot.
They push them to conflict.
Yeah.
And it's so great the kind of tragic irony. Had everything gone to their plan, those two would have never risen as highly, but they would have risen together.
Yeah, but instead they fight.
Because Paul was supposed to be a girl.
And then they married, yeah.
And then Lady Jessica decided, like...
I want the Lisan al-Gaib.
She thought, she was the mother of the Lisan al-Gaib. So she made Paul a boy.
All the stuff that's seeded in part 1 is so followed up on so well in part 2.
Like, and that, like when they eventually fight at the very end of Dune, like Dune Part 2, it adds like a whole extra layer to their encounter because like it's shot so intimately.
Yeah.
Like they were going to end up had the Bene Gesserit's plans gone according to plan, they wouldn't have been fighting against each other. They would have been probably fighting together against the Fremen.
Yes.
And it's like, fuck.
Yeah. Even the "May thy knife chip and shatter" exchange. Not only is the way he delivers that funny, but it also like there's so many layers
like
you can interpret.
You could read it as him being like, "Fuck, that was really cool. That was really. I need to impress him, her, him. I need to impress them. May thy knife chip and shatter. Shit, fuck, damn it. They're gonna think I'm lame."
But yeah, that's definitely. But you could also interpret it as. I've seen it interpreted as a mocking response, a flirting response, it's such intention behind it, no matter what.
Yeah, there's room for interpretation, but also it's so active. Like I said before, I apologize, Justin Butler. I did not know you had it in him.
He knows how to cook. I also think it's funny that he has the Stellan Skarsgård accent, and I legit think the main reason he has that accent is to get the Elvis voice out of him and replace it with something else.
Yeah. Well, now because now in the press circuits, like he's talking relatively normal now.
Yeah. Yeah. He's normal out a little bit. I still do. I see the clips of him. I don't know if you've seen the clip where it's like, "Hey, I'm Timothée Chalamet, and I'm Zendaya, and Austin,
and I'm Austin Butler,
and Austin." Follow Dune on TikTok.
Well, if it isn't poetry.
The only time I noticed the voice in that performance, though, is his first line. He says "Dobbins," and it's very. It's like his first line. In the movie, and then it like
that's him. That's like him. Like he kills that lady. That's him killing the Elvis voice.
But he's not the only good one in the movie.
He's not even the best performance, probably. Like,
yeah,
it's his best performance I've ever seen of him. But like Rebecca Ferguson playing Lady Jo, there's so much deep subtlety to her because like there's so much subtle nuances to the Lady Jessica character of like capturing this sense of like fervent. It's like having to play Lady Macbeth. Mm-hmm. There's so much like fervent radicalism while at the same time capturing like that she's going insane and like losing her grasp on both reality and control of the situation. It's like there's so many layers.
I had an interesting experience rewatching the first one and then watching the beginning of the second one that made me click and go, "Oh wow, she really was significantly less crazy." And then she took the water of life, and the baby woke up in her, and then she
was always scheming.
Yeah.
And then, but after that,
she went into overdrive. But she had some reservations about her own scheming as she was doing it, which I think was interesting.
And then the water of life happened, and she's literally been awakened from. She's literally been both awakened and driven insane due to the knowledge of all Bene Gesserits that came before her, and using the Bene
and not just her having that, but also the baby.
The baby having that too,
which is something
and being able to psychically communicate between Paul, the baby, and herself, all three, and they're able to.
I didn't. It took the second watching for me to really click. Like, oh, that's what's happening in the water of life scene. Like, they show the baby's eyes opening and awakening. I didn't quite. I didn't know where the plot was going. I didn't know where the plot was going at that point, so I wasn't sure how to interpret different visuals. Second time through, the visuals are very, very. They're clear.
It's clear.
It's a weird subplot, and apparently in the books it's even wilder.
Well, because in the books, they're not psychically talking to a baby.
Yeah.
It's just a as just a murder child little toddler.
Well, but yeah, there's like a time
fully-
skip, kind of.
Yeah, who has a full sense of communication.
As a child, I liked how they did it in the
I
movie.
prefer how they did it.
Especially without having like such a big time skip jump thing.
Yeah.
That it made a lot more sense. I also liked the changes they made to the character of Chani, having her take more individual agency and question what Paul is up to more.
Yeah.
I think that was a necessary thing to do in the movie sense, to have a strong character questioning him. So
especially one who was so close to him.
Yeah.
No one else would be allowed to question him like she is.
Yeah.
But also like no one else, like it wouldn't have the same weight if it was anyone else.
Mm-hmm.
Like if Stilgar started questioning him, oh, that makes sense. He's the leader of a gang of freedom fighters who has to look out for his people.
Right.
Why wouldn't he be questioning the intentions of this random white boy who pulls up?
Stilgar becomes such a glazer of Paul halfway through.
He really does. And
it's a natural development.
It's a natural development.
It's still fun.
It's so funny, but it's also like kind of depressing how far he falls.
Yeah.
From being a fully, not in like a, oh, they ruined this. No, like in a, how far he in universe is falling.
Yeah.
From going from a fully realized character to
Paul's hype man.
To Paul Muad'Dib Atreides' biggest glazer.
They do some
to the point where he's like he could barely hold himself back from praising him while Paul was getting his ass kicked by Frey Roth. Like he had to hold it in for so long. Lisa Algaib.
As this is written. There's a reason he's one of the memes of the movie. Is it just
out of context? It's so funny, but then in context, it's still funny, but also so devastating.
Even in context, like the bit where he's like, he's so humble. That is literally Life of Brian. I think I whispered.
Praise the Messiah.
I think I whispered Life of Brian. This is just Life of Brian to you when we watched it the first time.
It's so good. But I like that. Like I love that they're playing into like this anti-chosen one narrative.
Yeah.
Where it's like Paul is the chosen one, but he really fucking doesn't want to be because he knows what's going to happen. He knows exactly what's going to happen.
There's such a sense of helplessness in that middle section of the movie after the Fade Ralpha chunk, where Paul hasn't drank in the water of life yet, but you can just feel all the circumstances of the plot forcing him to the south of the planet, forcing him into that
plot. And he knows what's going to happen if he goes south, but he can't stop.
But he literally can't not, because everything around him.
If he doesn't go south, the Fremen don't win the war.
And another thing that I appreciated more the second time was the first time I was kind of like, why is Gurney back? Like, what purpose does Gurney serve? But watching it the second time, I was like, Gurney is useful because it provides somebody from his old life, like,
to show like how much he's changed.
Yeah.
But also it's another great source of bad influence on Paul.
Yes. Yeah. It took a second viewing for me to realize how much Gurney was also whispering in Paul's ear with like bad ideas, and not intentionally.
No.
But through this like.
They follow the Messiah.
Yeah.
What's wrong with being the Messiah? I'm scared of what I'll unleash. Because you lose control? Because I gain it.
Right. Get a good example. And just the general, like, the symbolism and theming of him ditching his father's ring, and you see him fully involving himself in Fremen life, and rewatching him like, okay, Gurney showing up is the beginning of him re-entering the, like, Atreides, Harkonnen dynasty way of thinking.
Which is so damaging to him.
Yeah.
Especially when he finds out that... I don't even know if I want to do spoilers, because it's so... like spoilers.
Spoilers.
He's a Harkonnen.
Yeah.
His mom was the daughter of the Duke. Mm-hmm. Duke Harkonnen. She didn't even know that.
Baron.
She didn't even know that until she took the water of life. But they're as much an heir to House Harkonnen as they are Atreides.
That's another great reveal, and I like that it's not revealed when he drinks the water. It's revealed when he has the conversation with her afterward. Like, good plotting on the movie.
And, like, I love how much this weighs on them. Because their whole way of life has not just been about, like, fighting the Harkonnens. It's about not being them.
Right. Yeah.
And so what do they finally? And so how do they finally win the war? By being the heart. By fighting like Harkonnens.
With trickery and brutality and
It's so brilliant because like Paul is truly the true marriage of the two houses, but not in a good way.
Not in a good way.
He inspires all of the fervent militism of his father, with all of the cunning and brutality of the Harkonnens. A combination deadly enough to shatter the world, and shatter the world he does because after engaging in
Holy War,
after engaging the Empire, cornering the Emperor, killing the Duke and his heir, he starts the Holy War.
Yep.
And he knows he's going to. He knows where it's going to lead, and he still
does it.
He still does it, and he still can't. He still knows he can't stop it.
It's such a sinking feeling when he's leading all of
the line of him saying "lead them to paradise" is so sad.
Because you can realize he's not bringing the paradise to Arrakis. He's leading them off-world to go fight foes away from their planet somewhere else.
Yeah.
And that's when I was like, oh shit, they're leaving the planet. Like this isn't just
they're leaving.
This is now Paul's. The second they leave the planet, it's not their fight anymore. It's Paul's that they're like following.
But because it's Lisa and Al Gaib, they will follow it to death.
And that's why Chani's staying on the planet and doing whatever she's gonna do is a really And shoutouts to the soundtrack. I mean, the soundtrack is really good. They use the Ahima thing just the right amount. Like they use it when he first harnesses the power of the worm. They use it after he drinks the water, and I think they use it towards the end.
Yeah.
And it's like
there's also this really fucking amazing scene. Like, and it would still be amazing, but it would not be like this is the perfect movie, greatest movie of all. Like this would not the scene of him going to the south after drinking the water, and he crosses the desert, and the worms are coming up behind him, and the music is like this, almost a horror film. It's like this really low bassy guitar, and then with punctuated by these string, these just out of nowhere almost jump scary high strings, that come in it's like boom, boom, brrr, dun, 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 and it's this. It's such a good shot, and they're overhead, and it's there's such a subtle brilliance, the way he's portrayed, because up until this point, the Harkonnens have been portrayed as pure black. Their outfits, their skin is
the black and white colors.
But they have a black and white color scheme. Their outfits, their uniforms, all black. When they appear on the horizon or when you see them at a distance, they're nothing more than an inky black silhouette. Fremens, even though they wear darker colors, grays and browns, they look and their skin tones are much earthier. When they're in a unified mass, they have this white kind of holy effervescent glow to them.
Yeah, they have
and Paul is like that too for most of the movie until he drinks the water of life, and suddenly he's cloaked in this. He wears this dark cloak that hides his entire form, and he becomes a shadowy mass as he moves through the crowd, and it looks like an open wound.
Oh god, the monologue.
The run up to the monologue and then the monologue.
To deliver that monologue that well, in most of it in a fictional
fake language
is insane as an actor.
And to not it never feels ridiculous.
No,
and not only does it not feel ridiculous, it doesn't feel.
Not only does it not feel ridiculous, you don't even notice it. It's only after watching the movie was I
oh yeah, this is a fantasy. And it's only after that scene where you're oh yeah, this is a fantasy movie. I almost forgot.
Yeah, and only after watching the movie did I realize, wow, at least 30% of the dialogue in this movie was in a fictional alien fantasy language.
Yeah.
And it didn't stand out at all. I was so immersed that it was not weird or distracting in any way. That's crazy.
Cinema.
My particular soundtrack soundtrack scene parallel bit that I really love is there's one song and it's used twice in the movie. It's used first when Chani and Paul kiss for the first time, and then it plays the sort of time lapse sequence. Yeah. The song that plays in that scene.
If this was a straight 1-to-1 adaptation of the book, the implied time jump.
And there is an implied time jump. It's not more like it's like 6 months
as opposed to like 6 years.
Like years. I think it's 2 years.
Maybe. But because the baby grows supernaturally fast.
Yeah, but in this movie it's 6 months max.
Yeah.
Is how I interpreted that.
6 months.
God damn it.
We'll get there.
But I love that scene has the song's called something like A Quiet Before the Storm or something like that. And
the one I was talking about earlier is called Arrival.
Okay. Yeah, we both have different songs we plucked out of the center. That's the one I noticed because it's used in that scene. And it's used like the music swells right after they kiss and plays so dramatically through that whole time-lapse section. But then the second time they use that music is at the very end, is at the end of the film.
When
the
whole
last sequence when everyone is leaving the planet and she's leaving them.
His hope, his heart is leaving.
Yeah, so it's
like he could do any of this as long as he had her by his side.
Yeah, it's such
and she's leaving.
It's such a gorgeous track. It starts out very like in the background, sort of small, underwhelming, kind of like the desert mouse, quiet, unassuming, and it grows into this like song that sounds kind of like loving, but also tragic at the same time. Like this very big sweeping piece.
I saw someone make a funny like letterbox collection of films about girls, films about like brown-haired girls falling in love with the devil. and it's this, Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, and I think Star Wars.
Ballad of Songbirds, that was a good movie. Have you seen that movie?
No, but I heard it was good.
I made a whole review of it that was like 40 minutes long. Sometimes I just but I thought that movie. I gave that movie a 9 out of 10 on Letterboxd.
Damn.
I really thought it was like really good. Easily my favorite Hunger Games like movie.
Dang. I like the first 2 Hunger Games.
Yeah, I like both of those, but that one just really. I think this isn't a review of that movie, but that movie was good.
Well, it's like similar themes of like.
It does have similar.
Like that similar theme of like someone who like not necessarily like I don't know if it's the same with like in Hunger Games, but it's like like what they're going to become.
Yeah.
And even they may know it. But like the fact that they can't stop it.
I think
and every attempt they make just makes it more inevitable.
There is something. I do think the protagonists of those 2 movies are somewhat similar. I feel like, but they're also kind of reversed in a way. Where Snow in the Hunger Games feels like somebody who he consistently, if you walk, this is about that movie that I thought was really interesting about his character in the Hunger Games prequel. He consistently does evil things throughout the movie, but at first he's doing them for the right reasons, and in the back half of the movie he's doing them for the wrong reasons. So you that's how he becomes a villain.
Right.
Is you stop rooting for him.
Whereas
Paul is kind of like flipped, where he
starts out doing heroic things, and then from a certain point of view he keeps doing heroic things, but for the wrong reasons. And then eventually he's just going to become an out-and-out tyrant.
Yeah, it's kind of they both lead to the same end point, but it's interesting how they're sort of inverses.
Yeah. And it's like Paul can totally, and like it's not just like dramatic. Like he drank the water of life. He knows the past, and because he's the most powerful of the Jesuits to ever exist, he also knows the future.
Mm-hmm.
So he knows where this leads.
Yeah.
And he still can't stop it.
Yeah. Ooh.